Welcome back to Addicted to Recovery, the podcast bringing you the truth about addiction. My name's Christopher White. I am joined by my dear friend, co-host and fellow recovering addict, Max Thomas. How are you today, my brother?
I'm actually really good, mate. That is like genuine. And I was thinking the other day, Chrissy, like before we get into it, like I was walking the dog and I was thinking, I always try and say to myself, how am I actually feeling today? You know what I mean? How am I? Give yourself 2 minutes. And I was going to do a little video about it, like we do in the morning sometimes. And because I think it's so important. I think people can be in such rushes with their lives, mate, that they don't have the time to just think, how am I actually doing today? And genuinely, I feel amazing. And I spoke to someone else in our fellowship yesterday. I just come out of the gym and I was just on top of the world, mate. I'd done 40 minutes on the treadmill, something like 6-7 kilometers, something like that.
Nice.
And I was just like living and breathing the endorphins. I was just in such a good
Runner's
place.
high.
And he was just, and it's like, I have to get in such pain to go to the gym. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why don't I do it?
When you've had that bit of time off, it's tough to get back into.
Yeah, but why don't we do it every day?
I do.
Like, it's mad. I know you do. Well, now you do.
Yeah. Exactly. Mate, exactly the same. I was about to say, this morning, I'm in the gym, right? I've I got an hour. So I've done 20 minutes on the bike.
Yep.
Fast pace, hard on the bike. Then I was like, one day a week, I like to do just body weight. You'll love this workout, by the way.
Yeah.
Set my stopwatch. On the minute, every minute, 4 pull-ups.
Wow.
For 20 minutes, right? By the end of it, you've done like 80 pull-ups.
What, dead by the end of it, or?
Oh, toast. Like absolutely toast. And then the timer doesn't stop for the next 20 minutes on the minute.
Yeah.
Sorry, every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
5 dips followed by 10 press-ups.
Yeah.
And then you wait 2 minutes. Then more dips, then more press-up. And by the end of it, like literally 20 minutes on the bike, 20 minutes doing the chin-ups, 20 minutes doing the dips and press-ups. I was ruined, mate.
Yeah,
ruined.
Awesome.
But I felt great.
Yeah.
Little steam room, shower after. Felt brand new, mate.
Your full works, yeah.
Yeah, full shebang. It's just like a bit of self-care, right?
Yeah.
Getting out there, getting moving. Like I've mentioned it a few times on the Instagram stories that we've been doing. It's just like move.
Yeah.
Get out and move. It does wonders for your head.
It is. It gives me a real like 2-3 hour buzz afterwards. I sleep better. Then I want to eat better. I'm happier.
Sense of achievement.
More energy. Like it is phenomenal. When you're in it, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Plus I wear the Apple Watch now. So if I'm not doing it, it tells me come 8 o'clock, it's like, you can still do it. And I'm like, oh, fuck's sake. Then I've got the skipping rope out and I'm in the garden making sure I've got my calories done.
Shout out to Apple if you want to come and sponsor the show.
Yeah, would not say no to an Apple sponsorship. You know what I mean? I don't know who's in charge of marketing over there, but get in touch.
Yeah, man. I just want to say thanks to the listeners. We've been having such amazing feedback and people reaching out and people actually. I've taken someone to a meeting. They reached out to me and said, "I listened to the podcast, and I know you've done the same." And it's just that is what we're here for, isn't it? That's just that is like that. It's just been wow. Those sort of moments is what we're doing this show for.
Yeah.
Just to get people who were maybe a bit shy or not full of confidence to go to the meetings or not quite at that stage to actually, or not even realise they were an addict, Chris. Do you know what I mean? And get them back. Get them coming into meetings.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure some people will come thinking maybe they are, and they'll find out they're not. Even better. You know what I mean? It's almost like I've had people reaching out. So I had a guy come to the meeting off the back of it. He messaged me, met him at a meeting. He's been to a few meetings now. He's got 12 days clean.
Wicked.
Right? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to his missus. She messaged me on Instagram like, thank you so much. And I'm like,
the ripple effect, mate.
I'm like, straight away, there's 2 people whose lives have been changed.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hope it keeps happening, mate, because I hope we can keep doing our job properly by carrying a message of hope to the people. And I hope people keep listening, and I hope we can stay on track with what we're doing because, it's a beautiful thing to see. It really is.
It's lovely, and it's the number one reason why I'm doing this thing is to just help other people. It makes me feel good. Do you know what I mean? For a long, long time, I was just selfish to the core, and now I'm just trying to change myself, and this is another area where I can just give back.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's true. Back in the day, I assumed what was going to make me happy was money, success, drugs, sex, clothes,
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah.
It turns out the thing that gives me the biggest sense of happiness is being of service to other people.
Yeah.
When I get out of self and into service and I give freely of my time and help other people, that's the proper good buzz. I spent all them years searching for it out there, and really it was inside me all along.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, mate.
And it takes doing this stuff to sort of unlock that. The steps we're discussing today are pivotal
Yeah.
on that journey.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, well, they come into the rooms and for whatever reason, I get it to a certain degree, but there's a lot of like scaremongering around these steps, I find, which is...
Oh, yeah.
And I got it.
Definitely.
It's more, I don't know, people maybe that are procrastinated and not quite there, or their experience has been... But my experience around steps 4 and 5, which we're doing today, have been... I had an amazing experience. And I get it. I know it's my experience. And when I say amazing, yeah, it was hard, and yeah, it was sad, and yeah, it was painful. But I'm talking about once I finished the steps. Yeah, the journey through the steps was hard. 4 and 5, it was.
It's supposed to be hard.
Exactly. Yeah, but I wasn't like full of joy and skipping down the road whilst doing these steps. But at the end, the relief I got and the sensation that I got that I had moved on from that part of my life. That's what I'm talking about. It was a joyous moment.
I couldn't agree more. First time I ever read step 4 on the wall in a meeting.
Yeah.
So for like anyone who hasn't been to a meeting, there's 12 steps and the 12 traditions are up on the wall for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like brand new. I think I was 27 years ago now, nearly 10 years. I went to my first meeting.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, I'm a very observant person, and I was just looking around, sort of soaking it all in, and I read the steps on the wall. And obviously 1, I was like, yep, that's me. 2, I was like, well, what's this? 3, I'm like, what? I don't like the word God.
Yeah.
And then 4, a searching and fearless and moral inventory of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I was like, no chance.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't ready to go to them places. The reason was fear-based.
Totally.
I was scared of what I was going to uncover because I had been repressing and burying
And
so much and talking bollocks, right,
for years.
for so long.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the fear is for people, and why it gets a bad rap is because
The honesty.
you got to be honest. You got to go in and dig that stuff out.
So true, mate.
If you want to have a step 4 and 5 experience that is going to change your life, you need to go digging.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for me, I can only speak for me, there was a lot of dirt.
No, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's the honesty that scares the shit out of people.
Yeah.
It is. Because for a long time, I was just programmed to just be full of shit, exaggerate, do you know what I mean? Not tell the truth. That was me.
Yeah.
And for the first time in a long time, I've got to be totally... There's no point, I think we need to say, there's not much point coming into this step and not being totally honest, because you're just hurting one person. That's
You're
itself.
not going to get the benefit.
No.
It's like going to the gym and sitting down and not doing anything. You know what I mean? Yes, you went to the gym, but you got zero benefit from it because you might as well have been sitting on your sofa.
Yeah.
I think that's a good little analogy, because it's like you gotta get busy.
Yeah.
You gotta get busy with it. I was ready to embark on this journey at the time when it was like, right, I finished my 1, 2, 3. It's good, solid 1, 2, 3. It's like, right, we're on step 4 now.
Yeah.
I was ready.
Yeah.
I was just ready to do it. I was ready to get honest. I was ready to have a look. And the main reason I was ready is because I was sick of all that stuff that I knew I was going to be digging up, weighing me down.
Yeah, totally.
I couldn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
I was willing to go through the pain because I wanted to grow and I wanted to change.
I think, Chrissy, before we get into the crux of it, right, before we get right granular on this stuff, I think if there's listeners out there who have never read the steps before, they don't understand recovery, I think if I read step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. What does that actually mean? Layman's terms.
Well, look, first things first, the word moral scared me. You think about it, the correct morals in society, you know what I mean? In this step, the word moral's got nothing to do with like codes of behavior, society's norms, or the judgment from some authority figure. Yep. That's not what it is, right?
Yep.
It's almost like we come in here to discover our own individual morality, our values and principles, and that is straight out of our literature, right? we get to uncover layers of ourselves to find out what actually makes us tick, what
Yep.
we believe in, what we care about.
Yep.
And then we get to uncover, discover, discard.
Yep.
Turn over every stone. The ones we want to keep, we keep. The ones we don't, we get rid of them. They're not serving us.
Yep.
That's it for me.
So that includes resentments, feelings, guilt, shame, assets, fear, relationships, sexual inventory.
Yeah.
We get to write it all down and draw that line and move
It's
on.
basically everything. There's a line in the original text from the Alcohol Fellowship, and it's like a business who doesn't take regular inventory will go broke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like damaged and unsaleable goods are taking up valuable space in your storeroom. You know what I mean? You need to get new stock in.
Yeah.
If you don't take inventory, you will go skint, basically.
I've spoken about it on the podcast before. My analogy of it is, so from when I started, my behaviour started when I was a teenager through to my early 30s when I stopped and came into recovery. My analogy is a backpack on my back, filling up over time, gets heavier and heavier. The more stuff I do wrong, the cringy situations, embarrassing situations I get myself in, I become layered and layered and layered.
And the bag gets heavier and heavier.
The bag gets heavier and heavier, full of resentments, feelings, guilt, shame, remorse, sexual inventory, abuse. Do you know what I mean? It gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And eventually I fall over. This gives me the opportunity. Step 4 gives me the opportunity to fucking shake that bag out and empty it, man.
Get it all out. Lay it all out in front of you and be like, what serves me?
Exactly.
And what is going to allow me to serve others?
Yep.
And if it doesn't fit them categories,
Yep.
get rid of it. That's what step 4 is to me.
Yeah.
Funny you mentioned the word abuse. I was watching a film with my missus when I was early on in recovery. And it was like a domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
And I said, why do women stay when that's happening?
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, not all abuse is physical.
No.
And it fucking shook me to the core. Yeah. Because I'm shivering now thinking about it, right? Because I abused her. I never touched her physically. Yeah. But
same.
My behavior, the manipulation, the situations I put her in.
Mentally,
that's abuse, right? And we get to unpack all that stuff.
Yeah.
This lays the groundwork basically for the rest of the steps. Like they call these the action steps, 4 through 9. And all the stuff that we uncover in this, we keep that, and then we get to make amends for it later on in 8 and 9. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to get to that in time, but this is where we start finding out what is holding us back.
Yeah. And I can only explain it like I can remember when I was a child, right? And you'd done something wrong, and you had a secret or whatever, and then you got found out, and you had to own your stuff.
Yeah.
Just that relief feeling afterwards. I think hopefully most people can relate to that feeling of, oh, it's out. Everyone
It was
knows.
tough. I really didn't want to do that.
It's out.
But I'm glad it's out.
And step 4, and when we move into step 5, which is just reading it out to our sponsor, is just a exaggerated version of that fucking relief feeling.
And you know what? It's funny, yeah. So you say like we learn skills and things, ways to get through life.
Yeah.
Like you just said there, when you have to own up, and you feel that relief.
Yeah.
It was almost like my brain didn't compute that, and I didn't learn that skill. I didn't learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Because I used to do it over and over and over again. Meeting was on step 6 last night, and it was talking about dishonesty. And like, that is a huge defect for me, right? I would lie when the truth would serve me better.
Yeah.
Someone would say to me, have you seen so-and-so talking about a film? And I'll say, yeah. And I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, so what happens in it? Or what about this bit? And I'm like, yeah, like trying to go along with it.
Yeah, I get
you. What did I gain from that?
What is behind that though?
Exactly. I don't know. It was almost like I didn't have the ability to just be up. I suppose it made me feel like I was a part of, if I'd seen it as well, maybe.
Or not a part of.
Or not a part of, whatever it was. Something in me just didn't compute. And I didn't learn the fact that don't say you've seen it, because you remember last time when you were cringing when I asked you.
I can still do that now, mate.
Me too, right? It's so ingrained in me.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that stuff, there's certain certain things that you learn your lesson, like you touch the hot stove, you don't touch it again. Yeah. It's almost like them behaviors that I know are going to cause me pain. I just didn't have the ability to learn that lesson and not do it again the second time. And I think that's a huge part of my addiction, huge part of this disease. I would forget to learn the lesson. Caused me a lot of pain, mate.
Yes, I think moving through as we continue talking, for me, it was my experience around it. What did I get out of it, I suppose? And we'll come on to this.
So what's some of the benefits from working step 4?
Yeah, I suppose I can identify triggers and lay the foundations for change, I suppose, is the big one, Chrissy, for me. It's like huge. Do you know what I mean? We can just change into better people and not repeat the same mistakes that we've done in our past. We get a fresh start, I'd say. That was the big one for me. Fresh start. What has done, and then let's move on. Do you know what I mean? 1, 2, 3, you've laid the foundations. Yes, I've got this power greater than myself in my life today. I've got the faith that the program will keep me clean. Now let's do some work on myself.
Yeah.
Let's be that better person. And that's why I keep coming to it. That's why I keep coming to recovery.
Yeah.
To be this better person.
Yeah. Inventory for me is an ongoing process. Obviously in 4, we write down everything.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely everything.
Yep.
All them little things that you thought. So there were some things that I thought I was going to die with.
Yep.
Literally, I thought, I am never telling anyone that. That's why I cringed so hard in that first meeting when I read it and I was like, no chance, not doing it, can't do that. Right? I was in so much pain that I then became willing to do it. And when I was in the process of writing out my step 4, like writing out my inventory, there was some things that come up, right? Suffered some trauma. It was like a bit of sexual abuse when I was a kid. It was a real tricky situation. I sort of alluded to it slightly before. I didn't know if I was going to talk about it or not, but you know what I mean? I want to be honest. It was something that happened to me when I was a kid, and I didn't think I was ever going to tell anyone about it, right? I actually had a counselor before I come into recovery, and I told her about it, and she passed away.
Right.
She had cancer and it came back. She had survived cancer when I was seeing her and it came back. So it was like that secret that I'd got out and told someone
It
died with her.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, fucking hell, I've got to say that again. I've got to say it again. Yeah. And that was a real painful situation for me. Right. That's just one situation that I really didn't want to tell anyone. So I had loads of shame and guilt around it. And at the end of the day, I didn't have a part to play in that. Most of these resentments and things that weigh us down and that are like inventory material, we had a part to play. It's almost one of the only ones when you're a child and you're abused. It's one of the only ones that I didn't have a part to play in that. Yeah. No. I've now, by getting this out and talking about it with my sponsor and leaving no stone unturned, I've been able to begin the process of forgiveness, right? That person, I forgive.
Nice, man.
How amazing is it for me to say that, right?
Yeah.
And I truly do. I now see it from a side with a bit of empathy. What must that person have been going through to think that that is okay?
Oh, that's big stuff, Chrissy. That is.
Like, this is the thing. I've spoke to loads of people about it, and you know what they said to me? They probably had it done to him. So it's like, felt the same pain that I felt. And the thing is, Max, this is the thing that I really wanted to allude to. At the time, I didn't know it was wrong.
Right.
I didn't know it was bad. It felt weird, but I didn't have I was a child.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
The one thing that I took from it, and this is why I think I was bottled up and there was a lot of dishonesty and holding stuff back. One thing I do remember, they said, don't tell anyone.
Right.
Don't tell your mum and dad. Don't tell anyone. And from that point, I think it was like something sort of clicked in me where it was like, don't tell anyone anything. And I become really isolated, really shut off and really secretive about a lot of stuff.
You shared that with your sponsor. How did you feel after that?
Relieved.
Did your parents know before this?
To be honest, so I mentioned it in a previous podcast. It was the ace up my sleeve for when I was still using. I said it would come right on top for me again and again and again. And it was like, I'm holding on to that one for when I really need it. And it was like fucking one more time, blew my life up. And I was like, this happened to me. This is why I am the way I am.
Yes,
which is an excuse.
So you didn't discuss it in detail, and you
I
didn't discuss
didn't.
how it made you feel, and you didn't discuss. Do you know what I mean? I suppose.
Of course I
speaking
didn't.
about it in depth with your sponsor is a completely different kettle of fish.
Of course it is. And I spoke with a few people, some other people that went through the same thing.
Yeah.
In recovery.
Yeah.
And really identified. Funny enough, Paula, who was on the we had on the podcast before, I had a really in-depth chat with her about it, and she basically said to me something similar to what I was feeling, where it didn't necessarily feel bad, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, I liked it. She was like, I got a bit of love and I got a bit of attention.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, fucking hell, that was sort of my experience around it as well. And it was only like once. It wasn't even like an ongoing thing. Because I know some people have some real traumatic experiences. Mine wasn't like that. What it did, it confused me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It confused me, and it made me this secretive person. That was the main thing on my inventory.
Was it?
100%. It was like everything sort of spurred off of that.
Yeah.
And being able to get that out and share it with someone, write it down. And funny enough, so there's a section in step 4 where it's like, have we left anything out?
Yeah.
Do you want to get it out now? And it was like, I saved it up.
Did you?
Yeah. Because I didn't want to do it. I skipped over it. As I'm going through my inventory, like reading my step 5 out, reading my step 4 out with my sponsor, which is step 5. I read a page and then I like skipped a page. And then when I got to the end and it's like, is there anything you've missed out? I'm like, yeah. And I went back to it and read it out.
I think my experience around the inventory and actually doing step 4, I procrastinated on it. I did. I sat on it and I was going to meetings and doing loads of meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days, and just getting right stuck in, like I've shared before on here, and but sat on my step 4, and I still had that pain inside my gut, Chris, basically, and I don't think me and my wife were getting on particularly well at this point, and I was still holding on to that gear, basically. That's what I found out, and I remember going to a meeting. And I wasn't very happy at all. I was questioning a lot of things, and why am I not changing? Why am I not getting this stuff? And this lady took me to one side after the meeting. She said, "How you getting on with your step work?" And I was like, "Well, I'm through 1, 2, 3, and I'm just sat on 4." And she was like, "Well, you need to move on and help yourself. You need to do this." And so I cracked on, and I spoke to my sponsor about it, and he said, right, you need to get yourself a journal or a notebook and get yourself a pen. And I was like, no, I'll just do it on my laptop, I think. And he was like, nah. Well, this is the way that I did it, and this is the way that I'm suggesting you to do it. Because he said there's a lot of power in the pen. And I said, what does that mean? And it wasn't until I started writing out with a pen that things that I didn't even think bothered me just started coming out.
Yeah.
It was like small little cringy things maybe, or things that I might have forgotten. And I was just, it was a real intriguing experience, I suppose, because I was just uncovering all this stuff that had subconsciously been sitting there. Once I started going through the process, like the resentments, the guilt, the shame, sexual inventory, relationships, fear, abuse, like you mentioned, it started to really flow out of me, and that power in the pen stuff was, and once I started, I just couldn't really stop, and I remember just bashing it out over like a 2-3 week period.
And look, that's a great tool. Like you said, keep a notepad on you, because it's very difficult to sit down like, right, I'm doing step work now and remember everything. But when you're in that mindset of, right, I'm in the inventory process, stuff starts coming to you, but it might be at 8 o'clock in the morning when you're on the way to work, and you're like, oh, write that down. That's inventory material. So I would highly recommend anyone who's going through a step 4, do that, what you said. And that power of the pen stuff, when it comes from your hand straight through the pen onto the paper, there's something powerful about that, rather than like typing it in your phone or, like you said, type it in a laptop. It's like a disconnect.
It is,
when it comes straight from you onto the
straight
paper,
from the heart, straight from the gut. Do you know what I mean? It
definitely. I felt it.
And there was some weird little stuff in there from school, like how people had spoken to me and belittled me maybe, or made me feel just so tiny.
And you know what?
Loads
they
of
might
those
not
little
have even done that.
No.
It's just the way that you perceived it.
Exactly.
Because I know there's been so many situations where I'll feel slighted or I'll feel mugged off or something. Yeah.
They're the
And
ones for me that real hurt.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I guarantee at least 50% of them, it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
It's like I will play it up or play it down in my own head to because I like that stuff. The addict in me likes that stuff. It wants to feel self-pity. It wants to feel isolated because it wants me on my own so that I can then be like, right, that happened. We've got to do this now.
Yeah.
It was like, no wonder when I found these substances that changed the way I felt. No wonder I latched onto them.
Yeah.
I was just like a terrified child. Everything scared me. And yeah, look, after getting through this, that's when I finally just stopped being so scared.
Yeah.
The resentments were huge for me, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about resentments.
So I was in the dry house when I was doing my step 4.
Yeah.
And so I used to stay at the dry house Sunday through Thursday. And then Friday night I would come home. I had a young baby. My boy was 18 months at the time. Obviously I was still with my missus. I was trying to rebuild that family life. I didn't just disappear. So I was up there. It was almost like work. And then the weekends I would have at home. And it was fine through the 1, 2, and 3. I was discussing like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And then when we got to step 4 and we got to the inventory, and we got to the resentment inventory.
Yeah.
So basically, I didn't understand what resentment meant.
Yeah.
Right. So the word resent comes from, so re just means to do again.
Yeah.
Right. Repaint, reuse, rewind. It's like something that's already happened, you do it again.
Yep.
Sent, the SENT part, comes from a Latin word which means to feel.
Right.
The Latin word is sentire, it means to feel. So resent means to re-feel.
Right. Okay.
Right. So once I understood that, it was like, I get it.
Yeah.
Every time I thought about them things that happened, I felt it again. And I felt it again and again and again. It's like having like an instant replay machine for all the times I felt fucking mugged off in my life.
Yeah,
like,
of course, yeah.
And I felt it again and again and again and again. And the pain was the same, if not worse, every time I felt it. So I had resentments against my parents.
Yeah, same.
I had resentments against my missus. I had resentments against my son. I had resentments against my brothers. And during that period, when I was coming back on the Friday, the first week when I was in that resentment inventory, I come back on the Friday and my missus was like, what's up with you? And I was like, no, everything's all right. And then the following week, it come to the Friday when I was meant to be coming home, and I was like, I can't come back. And she's like, why? And I was like, I'm going through something at the minute with this inventory process, and everyone I'm around when I'm at home are the people that I'm writing about, and it's really uncomfortable.
Was there a recurring theme there? Why was it the people at home you were resenting?
Because they're the people that I spent most time with. Pretty much.
Yeah.
It wasn't any specific situation. Look, I know now that basically every resentment I've ever had, I've got a part to play in it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The reason that them resentments were with them people was because they're the people that were closest to me. They're the people I spent the most time with. And that's just sort of what happens. It's who am I exposed to the most? They're the people I'm going to resent the most, because I'll cook up whatever I need to cook up in order to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So I had to take, I think it was 3 weekends. I didn't come back while I was in that process. And I wrote down all that stuff and got it down as quick as I could, as thoroughly as I could, and then took it to my sponsor. And like we said, begun that process of, you know what I mean, getting rid of all that so that I could go home again and see these people, because it was painful.
Was it anyone on your resentment stuff? Was it more than people? Because obviously one of the questions is in any institutions like school, government, religious, correctional, civic.
Of course it was. Like it's not just people. It's you know what I mean? It's loads of different institutions. And funny enough, it says like the fellowship we're in is an organisation. You can have a resentment against the fellowship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I personally haven't, but I know some people that have.
Yeah.
They'll come in, get a little bit of clean time and be like, oh, nah, that don't work. And they'll cop a resentment with a fellowship, which is almost like your addict loves that because that will keep you out the door for a long time.
I think a lot of my resentments were around people who made me feel bad. And some of the time, like, it was, I mean, my missus making me feel bad was normally because I fucking acted terribly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you probably deserved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the resentment was still there. It was still there, and it would still brew. Or It might be that being a father or being a husband wasn't enabling me to act in my head how I wanted to go and act. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And stuff like that. And then there was a lot of stuff around my parents. Like, my parents are lovely people and beautiful people, and they did as best they could. But there was certain areas where I resent them for, right? And
Mm.
and I've done some work on that, and we move on. And but yeah, there was a lot of people that were close to me who I took up resentments with, and jealousy and all that sort of horrible stuff,
Yeah.
and horrible thinking really was just was another real reason that I went and used, because those feelings, I didn't like those feelings. I want to feel good at all times, Chris. Do you know what I mean? And those feelings, um, big strong feelings around family and friends and loved ones and stuff, yeah, just needed to be owned. They needed to be dealt with and moved
Yeah.
on from.
Yeah, funny enough, what you was just saying about your family, like about your mum and dad are good people and that you love them, mine are, right?
Yeah.
And I felt guilty when I was saying about these resentments. I was sitting with my sponsor and I was saying, but like, I love my mum and dad.
Yeah.
And he's like, mate, I know you love your mum and dad.
Yeah.
Should we do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was almost like,
Yeah.
you haven't got to keep justifying the fact, like,
No.
you've got this resentment.
No.
It may be justified, it may be not. Let's do the work. You haven't got to keep reiterating the fact that you love your brother, you love your mum. You know what I mean? Let's fucking do the work.
Yeah.
And
yeah, very true. Yeah.
you know what I mean? It was almost like, oh, you know what? You're right. I haven't got to keep justifying that because I love my mum and dad. I love my brothers. I love my missus. I love my son. But one of the big resentments I had against my family, especially my missus and my boy, they got in the way of my using. All of a sudden, I've got this little family and I'm a raging cocaine addict. I want to use 24/7, but I've got these responsibilities all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They got in the way of my using.
Yeah.
And the addicts in me didn't like it. So I used to cook up all these little plans to get me out of the house or get them out of the house. Or, mate, there'd be times where I'd just be down the bottom of the garden in the shed, like pretending I'm doing something or like tinkering with something. I've just got a load of lines racked up on the side.
Yeah, most of a lot of it for me, Chrissy, was like you said before, people who didn't even know they'd like wronged me.
Yeah.
They hurt me. I remember having a football coach once. I'm from quite an affluent family, right? And they used to call me, like, it was a little nickname, Posh Spice, right? It was, oh God, that's going to go viral now. But no, it sort of separated me from the rest of them. It really did. And that sort of stuff came out where, unbeknown, it's a little joke. It was like it was a nothing throwaway comment, but it was feeding that fucking resentment. Do you know what I mean? It was
well,
like,
funny enough, you mentioned this the other day, that you're not allowed to take the piss out of poor people, but it seems like it's okay to take the piss out of rich people.
no, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's exactly like you're just saying. You ended up cooking, like, you got this big resentment.
Yeah, happened at school as well. I didn't get into the school that I was meant to get in, and that brought up the fear, that filled up the guilt, and I let people down. And then I went to a school, and I was separated because my dad was a successful businessman. You know what I mean? I lived in a big house, and we had a few cars on the drive, and that again kicked up resentments. And teachers would say it as well, throw away comments,
like offhanded comments.
All of that time, it was making me not feel part of.
Different.
And then I was having to put masks on to suddenly be part of.
You know what? It's very similar to, like you say, when you go to school and there's the kid who comes from the really poor background.
Exactly.
And he's, you know what I mean, in scruffy clothes.
It is.
And he's getting it's the same thing.
It's the same stuff.
It's the same thing. It's just on opposite ends of the spectrum.
I don't want to pour me. It's not about that. But I'm just trying to sum it up to the listener that it's okay if you're feeling like that, and you're from one of those families.
Yeah. But look, like you're saying, right? You're an addict, so you will latch onto whatever it is you need to latch onto to feel sorry for yourself, right? Because that's what we do. That's what we like. Deep down, when we're living in active addiction and we're acting out on them behaviors, we want that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, brilliant, give me more. It's like more fuel on the fire, so that I can justify my behaviors.
Yeah.
And it's like, now we're into this stuff, we don't have to live like that anymore.
No.
We don't have to live like that. I mentioned it on Instagram the other day. Like, I've got a little bit of financial insecurity going on at the minute. I'm a little bit quieter at
Yeah.
work than I would like to be. And it's almost like, instead of like, oh, poor me, I can't get no work. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, what can I fucking do about it?
Yeah.
I'm up, I'm
and also
out.
the difference is that you own it. Like if I was to talk to that kid who was in year 7, me 20 years ago, whatever it was, in year 7, and I'd say fucking stick up for yourself, own
Yeah.
it, tell someone, share it. Do you know what I mean? I know it's easy. That's the difference for me today.
Yeah.
If someone were to say an offhanded comment like that, I'd either speak to you about it, ring my sponsor,
Yeah.
or tell the person, actually, that's making me feel a bit shitty about myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you mind not doing that?
Exactly, in the right situation.
Exactly,
That's the
because we're not
difference.
doormats anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? But look, I was a doormat, but I was the one walking all over me,
Yeah.
which is like, do you understand what I'm saying with that? It was almost like I was my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Is to put myself in situations that just didn't need to be done. Like, so while you was in your inventory process, were there people that you was bouncing stuff off?
Yeah, of course. My sponsor was the main one, Chrissy. And yeah, I suppose let's go over that quickly. This is the important bit about choosing the right sponsor. Because my sponsor at the time, I just knew he was the man that I was going to get honest with. I just knew he was similar to me, so he could relate to the stuff that I was going to tell him, and also relate to what I was saying, and yeah, and I could trust him. I mean, the fundamental thing was that I trusted him with my life by this point, and it's so bloody important when you're choosing a sponsor. Step 4 is coming, so you need to know that you're gonna be able to talk honestly and openly with someone and trust them. And the sponsor I had was fantastic, and when we went through the process, God, I just felt so held. Like stuff that I'd been
during the inventory process,
stuff that I'd been bottling up and thinking, fucking hell, how is someone going to react to me saying this? Might have been silly stuff about my child, Chris. You know what I mean? And most of the time, I'd make a mountain out of a molehill, or I'd get, I'd done that. Oh yeah, I'd done that, and I was worse than that, and I did this, and suddenly my problems and my stuff that I've been holding on to for so long, my guilt, my shame, that's where it lies with me, the guilt and shame stuff, right? The stuff where I didn't behave like I should have when I was a father. I didn't behave like I should have when I was a husband or a son or a brother or a sister. That was the real stuff. The guilt and the shame was the stuff that my addiction fed on. It fed and fed and fed and kept me out there using it. Loved that sort of stuff. And the cringy stuff where I was like, do you know what I mean? All that that's what it was. That was its food. And the person that I chose to share this stuff with, my sponsor, it was quite easy to talk to him in the end. It was easy. I just felt so comfortable, man. And I'll be forever grateful really for that. Because if I was met with someone, and I'm not saying this will ever happen to anyone, if I was met with someone if you're speaking to someone down the pub or one of your mates, do you know what I mean? They might be judgmental about what you're going to tell them.
Yeah.
You did what? Do you
know
what I mean?
Man up, mate.
Yeah.
That ain't even that bad.
And this process is a beautiful process. There's no judgment. There's no laughter or fucking, do you know what I mean, belittling you or anything like that. I was met with love, I suppose. That was my experience with that.
Yeah, well, look, I completely agree. I know I picked the right sponsor.
Yeah.
The time when I knew that I'd picked the right sponsor was when I did step 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because first of all, he was with me all the way through the inventory process. Yeah. So I'm like, what about this? What about this? And he's like, it's a line straight out of our literature. It's like, you can write not enough, but you can't write too much.
No.
Get it all down.
Yeah.
Right? So we got it all down. We, I think we sat down for like 2 hours, and then we had a break, and then we sat down for another 2 hours. It was like a 4 or 5 hour process reading my inventory out. Yeah. And exactly like you just said, when there was a particularly cringy one, I was like before I read it out, I was like, so this one coming up, by the way, you know what I mean? He's like, just fucking read it. Yeah. So I read it, and he was like, I've done exactly the same. Yeah. Let's stop for a minute here. And he explained a situation that was very similar in his life. Exactly. That put me at ease. Yeah. It was like, fucking hell, I'm not the only one who's done that stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was just, so I've done hundreds of hours of counseling and therapy and all sorts. And the most growth I've ever had in my life was with a plasterer in Wickford.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It really was. I sat down with someone who thinks like I think and feels the way I feel and has been through the things that I've been through, has got a working knowledge of these 12 steps. I sat down, related with him, and he shared with me, I shared with him. And at the end of it, I walked out of his house. I felt 10 foot tall. Like literally from that point on, my life's not been smooth, plain sailing, but them things that used to bother me so bad, like, and I would use off them and one would feed the other. It just doesn't occur in my life anymore.
I couldn't agree more, Chrissy. I think before I did my step 4, and I share about this in meetings, well, I used to quite a lot, especially when I first came in, I used to really struggle sleeping. And what I mean by that is I used to put my head back on the pillow and I'd get images. I'm talking like proper vivid fucking images of shit that I've done.
Re-feeling.
Yeah. Or situations I put myself in, or just dangerous when I used to go and score, or a few times when I was out in Ibiza, just getting myself in fucking stupid situations, dangerous, hospital visits, that sort of stuff. And I'd get flashbacks, basically.
Yeah.
When my head's on the pillow, I'd get flashbacks. And awful. Years and years and years worth of this stuff. And as soon as I did my step 4, like you, it took a process. I was in there 4 or 5 hours with a break in the middle, and they stopped.
Started sleeping.
I had a proper moment from that day onwards, and this is no bullshit. Like, I'm a very honest person today. I put my head down on that pillow that night, and they stopped.
Yeah.
Honestly, man.
Clear head.
I had that much of a moment, that much of an experience, that line in the sand's drawn. Like, and this is what my sponsor said to me: we're moving on from today. This is it. We're moving on. You're going to fresh experiences. You are going to be that dad you wanted to be. You are going to be that husband, that brother, that son. This is the moment when we move on. Do you know what I mean? That we can clear the wreckage of our path and
Powerful,
move on.
innit?
It's fucking massive.
Yeah.
Like, wow. If you don't want to experience something like that, for me, like, you're fucking crazy, because it's genuinely changed my life.
Yeah, if you've got a head like me and you don't want that, what you just explained, man, I was exactly the same. I couldn't sleep. I used to fall asleep with the telly on every night because I couldn't sit there in silence.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
No.
Because my head was just like,
Remember
spinning.
when you did this? Do you remember when you felt like this?
Yeah. Oh, what, you sleepy? Oh, yeah, bosh, have that. You know what I mean? It's like, remember that one when you were 12? I'm like, fucking hell, like, leave off. Not to mention the stuff that happened last week, like, one after the other. Mate, I couldn't relate more. I didn't have the exactly like epiphany moment like you did, but I sleep today. I sleep. You know what a massive tool for me is? I read. I read a book. Before I go to sleep, I get a book out, I read it. It's very difficult to think about things whilst reading. I mean, it takes me months to read a book because I do 2 pages and fall asleep. It's beautiful. And if it wasn't for my 7-month-old baby, bless him, I would sleep all the way through. But I've been getting woken up a little bit.
He's gorgeous, isn't he?
He's worth it, mate. He's worth it.
He's a mini you, though.
Yeah. You know what? I do sort of, I do think though, like, obviously I've got 2 boys, you got 2 kids. I think, because this stuff runs in families.
Yeah, I'll watch for the patterns, yeah.
I really do watch for the patterns because it's almost like, first things first, there's nothing we can do about it. If that's going to happen, that's going to happen. But we'll be geared up to spot the signs and point them in the right direction. My mum and dad, bless them, they didn't know.
But Chrissy, I'm teaching my kids to be as open as possible.
Me too.
If they're feeling sad, they tell me. If they're feeling happy, they
talk to me about it.
When I was growing up, that wasn't the case.
Nah.
It wasn't. But it's not my parents' fault. It just wasn't the done thing.
No.
It wasn't.
I think it was the times.
My mum and dad never sat me down and said, "How are you feeling?" Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. It was the times. It just wasn't. I think that's why kids have got definitely a head start. They've got obviously disadvantages in today's society with social media,
etc.
Shite, but one of the big advantages is that we're talking, and I think in schools they're encouraging talk and
mental health awareness,
and it is great. But I'm on it with my kids. I really am. If I can spot that they're holding something back, or especially my little boy, my little girl's definitely more bolshy.
Yeah,
but my little boy,
she's funny though.
No, she's good stuff. But you're right. You sure? What's going on? And then I eke it out of him sometimes because I know that caused me damage when I was a kid. It really did. Putting that stiff upper lip. Come on, son, man up. All that bollocks.
Yeah, exactly. Big boys don't cry.
No, and so the times are changing definitely. But
yeah.
What about guilt and shame? Like I mentioned, it was a big one for me. There's certain stuff that I can't talk about, but there's a few that I can. Like there's one that hurts me, and my pal got in a Barney on the middle of the high street once, and I wasn't there for him.
Right,
I fucked it off, and it's stuck with me for a long time. It really has. That's the stuff.
Yep.
That I held on to for years and years.
I was in
years.
exactly the same situation.
Really?
Right.
Yeah. I ain't going to go into massive detail, but I should have been there and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And my missus was involved. His missus was involved. And
Froze up.
Yeah, I was a coward, man. And to own that stuff to my sponsor, and we discussed it and talked about it, and I move on from it. And but that was one of those sorts of big feelings for me. Hurt the most.
Yeah.
And held me back.
Well, look, funny you should mention that.
Yeah.
It didn't come up on my step 4, but it probably could have.
Yeah.
Because I was in exactly the same situation.
Yeah.
My mate got jumped by these kids and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it fucking hurt me.
Yeah.
Right. Because I even come home and my dad was like, did you jump in? Because that's what we do. You jump in. You have your pals. And I was like, yeah. Even though I didn't. Right.
Yeah.
And everyone knew I didn't. And that sat with me for a long time. Next time it kicked off, I went flying in, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. Terrible fighter, you know what I mean? Always used to get whacked, but
it wasn't really a next time for me.
I had to because luckily, I mean, my pal's a fucking nightmare, you know what I mean? It was always kicking off. So I got a chance to redeem myself. Funny enough, one of my mates, after 3 or 4 times this had happened and I kept jumping in and not doing very well, one of my mates was like, we know your game. Don't worry about it next time. You know what I mean? So I was like, thanks, mate.
Thinking about it, the amount of people we've had on so far, like there's quite a few examples of where that has happened in their story where that guilt and shame plays a massive part. It really does.
Yeah, of course it does. And look, there's loads of things, whether it could be something really small, like just a silly little lie, or things like you're talking about where you just like, you didn't act in the way that you wish you'd acted. And it was like, and that's all fear-based. You were scared about what was going to happen. Yeah. I was scared about what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was almost like I realized after the second, third or fourth time, whatever it is, when I did, and it was almost like, we're not made of glass. You know what I mean?
No,
I
fundamentally don't believe in that sort of behaviour. So I think that's
me neither.
It doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not that sort of geezer, so it's like,
I think that's more what it is.
Yeah, I find it hard to be that person. It's genuinely not me. I'm like,
but this is right. So there you go.
I'm a nature loving crier.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Me jumping in the second, third, fourth, fifth time, whatever it was. That's me putting on a mask.
Yeah.
My natural state is
run.
Well, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I don't want to hurt anyone.
Yeah, man.
But like my old man going, no, you jump in, you back your pals up. And it's almost like, yeah, I do want to be that loyal person that helps his friends out. But at the same time, when I think about the situation, the reason why that fight happened, my mate was in the wrong.
Yep.
He cheated on someone's bird.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, mate, the things that we do and the situations we put ourselves in to try and not look less than or feel more than, it's like, it's outrageous.
In my behaviours around my wife and my kids, obviously the guilt, that just grows and grows and grows. And when I was using, subconsciously, that guilt, the more wrong stuff I did and the more times I didn't show up and the more times I let people down, that guilt and shame subconsciously was growing and growing and growing. And what did I say before? The addict was just fucking munching on it constantly. And coming in, another massive one for me, owning that stuff, especially around when my little boy wasn't very well when he was born and my missus wasn't very well. I was there, but I weren't there. And I had a lot of guilt and shame around that, man.
Yeah.
And I've worked through that. And really, moving forward, I'm never going to be that person again. Never, ever going to be that person again. I am genuinely the best version of myself today from a as a father and as a husband. I am. Do you know what I mean? I've still got my flaws, but I am reliable. I do show up. Do you know what I mean? I am that man today, which is
Mate, there's so many
big part of it.
similarities
Yeah.
between me and you.
Mm.
Like that's shame and guilt you're talking about around your kids when they were younger. Like when Theo, my oldest, was born, like I was just so deep in the grips of addiction. Like I found it very, very difficult to be available
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah.
for anyone.
Mm.
And luckily for me, like with Jude, my youngest, I got a do-over, right? And what a beautiful experience that was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was present. I was there. And I held my missus' hand and I had a right good cry. I felt every second of it.
Yeah,
And
that's where it's at, man.
the first time around, I felt it. I did, but nowhere near like this with the second time. And so it's almost like I got to make amends for the first time. And luckily I got clean when Theo was young enough that he's not going to remember me using. He's not going to. So it's just like, I thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of people that put their kids through a lot of stuff and burn bridges that are very difficult to rebuild. So I'm forever grateful for the fact that I got it when my kids were the ages they were, so that they haven't got to see that.
And Chrissy, let's remind the guys, like in step 4, it's not all bad news. We do talk about our assets.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be definitely mentioned because,
funny enough, that was some of the most uncomfortable stuff for me.
Yeah, because I hate it, man. Even now I cringe out when I get a bit of praise. I'm just like, nah, it's not for me, but I crave it at the same time.
Me too.
It's like fucking
twisted.
Yeah.
It's completely twisted.
So some of the questions we have to answer, it's like, what qualities do I have that I like, that others like, that work well for me? And yeah, it's good. It's needed because at this point we're emotional. We have brought up a lot of stuff, that fear, that guilt, that shame, the resentments. Like there's lots of real strong feelings being thrown around in this step. So it's nice to reflect on. Look, it weren't all bad.
Yeah,
and there's some real positivism there. Yeah. And yeah, well, what was your experience around the assets, man?
Well, look, most addicts fundamentally are not bad people.
No.
They do bad things. I did bad things. I did shameful things. I did things that people found difficult to forgive.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, deep down, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I'm a kind person. I'm a loving, caring person.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when it says what qualities do I have that other people like, I went and asked people.
Yeah.
I said to my missus, there's a question here.
Yeah.
Can you answer this for me, please?
Yeah.
And she was like, you're generous, you're kind, you're loving, you're caring, you're affectionate. And I was like, that doesn't sound like a using drug addict.
No.
You know what I mean? And it was like, I went to see my mum and she was like, you're so funny. Like you walk into a room, my mum, like, if I was ever going to be a stand-up comedian, I would not try my jokes out on my mum because she fucking laughs at everything. She finds me hilarious. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, I had all these assets and they were buried. They were buried under layers and layers of like shame, guilt, remorse, resentments, and they were tough to come to the surface. Once we strip all these layers back, what we're left with is the assets, and then we can move forward with them. So I found it difficult to talk about that stuff because I felt like a piece of shit. When I first come into recovery, I'd done so much damage to so many people, including myself. You know what I mean? I was like a shell of a man. And I didn't want to believe that there was any good in me.
Yeah.
Because I'd caused so much pain. It was almost like I wanted to feel some of that pain that I've been putting on other people because I felt so bad.
Yeah.
And this part of the process is when we start rebuilding that and being like, you know what? I've got a lot to give.
Yeah.
So let's go out there and give it.
Yeah.
And I remember early on, someone said to me, you make a really good sponsor one day.
Yeah.
When I was like really early on in recovery.
Yeah.
And I was like, why the fuck would anyone want me to be their sponsor? Like, how's that going to work? And it come true. I'm a sponsor and I'd like to think that I do an okay job at it.
Yeah, amazing, man. I think one of the big ones for me was especially my work, I'm very good at managing people, I'd say, and really bringing the best out of people. I love seeing juniors come through my business and excel and grow and learn, and yeah, that's one of my real big
That's a great asset.
skill sets. And I suppose in recovery, Chrissy, like I've got 2 sponsees myself, and it's a similar sort of thing. Like I give my time freely to them, and I try and help them and make them grow in recovery. And yeah, that's one of my favourite things to see. Even if it's not one of my sponsees, maybe a newcomer that comes into the room, I try and
throw an arm around them.
exactly, man, and I try and look after them, I suppose, and try and let them grow as I've grown.
Yeah, nurturing.
Yeah, nurturing process is beautiful, and I suppose being clean, it's just enabled that asset to flourish. And for a long time, my addiction was suffocating a lot of my assets. And
yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Suffocating them. They were always there, but it's very difficult to live in that stuff when you're being buried by all the other stuff that goes with it. I completely agree. I remember there's a situation when I had this guy come work for me, and he was quite socially awkward, and sort of I know he'd been badly bullied when he was a kid, and he was like quite damaged with it. Yeah. But he was a really good worker, and he was such a good kid. And I was like, I put an arm around him and I uplifted him, and I got him into this new company he was working in. And I was like, this guy, like, and he was like, he come out of himself, right? He absolutely loved it. And then that job finished. He ended up going working for someone else. And I remember the fellow he was working for had some like dirt on him from when he was younger. And on the first day he went to work, he was like, oh, and really belittled him and put him down. And he just went back into his shell.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is the power of this stuff. If you can uplift and be positive, you can bring people out of their shell. Whereas at the same time, if you're negative, they can close up again.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a great asset to have, mate. Nurturing people, caring.
Coming to the end of the time now, Chris, and I think in our guides when we run through step 4, there's a lovely passage to finish it, and we can discuss it a little bit. It says, moving on, finishing a 4th step is many things. Maybe a letdown, maybe exhilarating, maybe uncomfortable. However we feel otherwise, we should feel definitely good about what we've accomplished. The work we've done in this step will provide the foundation for the work we'll do in steps 5 and through to 9. Now is the time to contact our sponsor and make arrangements to work step 5.
Yeah.
Just think that's
it. And look, we're into the meat and potatoes now.
We are.
We really are.
Yeah.
I hope the listeners have got a little bit of an understanding about what steps 4 and 5 are. I hope we've put to bed some of the fears that people have around it, because it gets bad press. It really does. I will say it now. Steps 4 and 5 are the best thing I've ever done for myself and for my personal growth, and probably I ever will do.
Yeah, it's like I said, draw that line in the sand, empty that bag, move on with your life. Because I know my experience around it is my life today. I feel like a free man. For a long time, the stuff that I've owned in step 4 was holding me back and feeding my addiction. And today it's not like that. So I'll be forever grateful for step 4 and the step 5 process, reading it out to my sponsor.
Nice. Hope you got something out of that, guys. And we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys. Bye.